What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Garageaholics E36 N54. It's been a long time since I've had an episode, and there is a reason for that, because wiring is very important, and you need to make sure that you have all of your wiring set up correctly before you do any type of power on. Now, we're going to go from this to this. And I got to tell you, I'm really excited, and this is completely true and honest. I have not done any pre-preparation for start other than what you see today. So if we don't get it started, well, then we didn't get it started. But if we do, then yes, we got it started under CAS, and that's wonderful. So stay tuned for more information as we go through. So stay tuned for the wiring on this puppy here. God. So hey, stay tuned. We got a lot of good stuff coming up So hey, stay tuned. We got a lot of good stuff coming up in this episode, huh? So first what we're going to do is we're going to end up wiring our powers and grounds. Once we do that, we can start working on a lot of our discretes with the CAS unit, with the EKPS pump relay for the fuel pump, as well as our X6001 connector. We're going to wire this up with CAS, our car access system, with the existing key, CAS unit, key holder, and the DME. However, we've got a great sponsor here from CAS Performance. They're going to end up sponsoring this car. They're going to be flashing this thing. We're going to be keeping a good tune. We're going to be programming the VIN. We're going to be doing some really good stuff to make this a seamless swap. It's going to be really good stuff. It's going to act as if it belongs in this car. We will apply a tune to it. CAS will be providing that tune, and they will be providing EWS removal so that we can use the existing E36 key. It'll be a lot of good stuff we have coming up here working with CAS Performance. They've been really willing to work with us on any type of specifics. We're going to be integrating directly with the cluster. It's going to be really good stuff. So I'm really excited to share that with you. So let's start doing powers and grounds, huh? This guy here is a 6-gauge wire that I had procured. That is going to end up getting hooked up directly to here on the E36, right? This is the power that's coming from the battery plus terminal. It's going to be going across this little bridge here, and it's going to be connecting to that. The starter will be this guy. This guy actually goes over the fly bridge and goes right to the starter and the alternator as well. This is going to be power for the DME. This is coming from the engine harness. There is a ground here from the DME. This guy is going to be going to ground. I think I'm going to connect it right down there. And there are additional powers here that's going through what's called the X6011 port, this this white guy here. These three guys here are going to end up getting connected to power through a relay. This is basically your main relay for the DME, so that's going to be powering that as well. This guy is, so far I'm going to ignore this for start. I'm not really too concerned about this one. I think it's called an X60531 or an X6041, X6031. I'm not sure exactly. All right, high gauge wiring is done. I've got the wire going to the rest of the car through the fuse box into the battery plus terminal. That's this guy right here. This guy is the extension of the starter wire that is now connected. So these two guys are good. I got ground for the DME. I've got power for the DME. This guy is the power, and it's going right into here. I don't have any bolts on any of these yet. I do need to install one more, and I will do that later, and that is the powers to the fuel injectors and the DME for the main relay. This is the EKPS relay. It is a relay that talks specifically over CAN, the powertrain CAN, through these two wires, and it basically communicates to this thing and has the relay provide a controlled current on the output to the fuel pump. That's what this is, output to the fuel pump. And this is the can. This is a looped wire. It came that way, so I'm leaving it. This is a green with a red wire. It's called a wake-up wire, and it basically turns this on when you turn on power to the CAS. And then this is power to the module. This basically is the power that goes in and would then eventually just go out to the fuel pump. And here is the fuel pump connection on the X20. This is just a generic wire that I'm using, but this is pin 13 on the X20. I'm gonna rig up really quick the power supply to the pump just to make sure that it works, and I'm getting fuel flowing. So let's do a quick ground here, right like that. And let's get the power going. Power is gonna go right into here, and let's be quiet. Let's see if you can hear it. I don't know, let's see. All right, so it's still working. Typically when it gets up to pressure, it stops, and that is what it just did. We are going to be connecting this thing to X6001, which is this connector here. It goes into the DME. And as you can see here, there is a powertrain can as well. And that is exactly what it's going to be talking to. Now there's one other module that powertrain can talks to. So we got our power to the fuel pump. That's going through pin 13 on the X20. The other one's going to ground. Same thing for the powers to the relay. That is going to ground and power as well. Power is going to be here. I got my powertrain can hooked up, and I've got my wake up 12 volt signal wake up wired up to the CAS. So that takes care of the relay. Now, let's do throttle pedal controls. I installed the throttle cable and the throttle pedal assembly in a different episode, but right now we're going to end up wiring it up into the X6001 connector. There are a number of wires that I had already allocated in that, that are dedicated, rather, to that, and that is these 6 wires here. So I have to match these 6 wires with these 6 wires. So I have to match these guys together. The wiring diagram shows me which pin on what goes to what. So it's just a matter of matching them up and crimping them in. So all 6 wires are done for the throttle. And this is actually going to be the set position, so that's why I heat shrunk them and finished this off, polished it up. We got 6 wires, like I said, 2 for ground, 2 for supply, and 2 for each of the potentiometer signals. So 6 wires total, and they're all wired up to the diagram right there that I will have in my write-up. Okay, now it's time to wire up the CAS module. We've already got our wake-up signal wire that's going to the EKPS relay. We do need to wire up a couple things like powers and grounds. We need to, this guy's going to end up going to battery. This big guy here is your ground. We got a couple of other powers and grounds as well. And we also need to wire up, most importantly, our start wire. This is the wire that's going to end up getting wired up right into the X6011 connector. There is a black wire right here, and this guy is going to connect directly to that guy. So that will be an easy one. That's actually the start wire to the car. There's a couple of other smaller gauge wires that need to go to this X6001 connector for EWS to make sure that, hey, this guy is going to talk to this guy and say, you're good to start. So there are a couple of wires for that. And of course, most importantly, is the clutch switch. There are 2 wires for the clutch switch. And basically that means that whenever you push the clutch in, you are now allowed to start. It's basically just a ground switch. So that's another important signal that you need to get in there in order to get this thing started. And there's a couple of other signals that do need to get wired up, but not for first start. So let's do the CAS module right now, and we'll also talk a little bit about the key and the key fob. All right, and the start button, of course. So we essentially got most of the CAS system installed. This is the main connector, and I hooked up my powers, my grounds. I hooked up my signal wire to the X6001. It goes to X6001 pin 2, which basically tells the DME to disengage EWS because everything is good. The right key is in, it's the good car, it's all that stuff, whatever. Basically clears any EWS codes. Hook that up right now. Okay, CAS module is in. Looks like I accidentally bent a pin in the key. I'm gonna undo that and then get this key started, the key plugged in. So far everything's looking good. Quick overview here. We got basically everything set up. We do not have the OBD port hooked up for the purposes of first start. I will be doing that later. I just want this damn thing to fire up. So having said that, we are in good shape. We're ready to go. We hooked up our power to the X6011. That goes into the DME as well. We got all of our ports here tightened down. All right, so we have our CAS unit hooked up. We got our key. We got our start-stop switch. And we got our battery in here. There's Ben. He's going to help me out here. And he wants to be a big part of this first start. So that's what we're doing right now. There's a battery I throw in there. It's just a dummy battery for now, but it should provide the current that we need to get this thing started. We're going to hook up our grounds right here. And then we're going to hook up the power. I'm going to have Ben do that. I'm going to take a look up front just to make sure that nothing catches on fire. I hate to say that, but it's very, it's very real. So we just have to be really careful. All right. All right, now we're going to put power on for the first time. I got my multimeter here. I'm going to do some measurements. Everything seems to be hooked up okay. Powers and grounds look good. Oh, that ground's loose. I got to fix that. That's better. A lot tighter. Good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to basically apply a little bit of power, or just he's going to apply power, literally, but he's going to basically touch the other side of the battery just in case something happens and I need him to take the power off real quick. But I do want to see what happens if we just apply power. So go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, just hold it there for a sec. Everything looks good. Nothing really seems to be clicking or doing anything yet. Nothing yet. Well, this is great news. No news is good news when it comes to this stuff. Fuse is good. All right. All right, so I'm going to do a couple measurements of some voltage here. You got it held on?
Still good.
Okay. So I'm just going to do some voltage measurements just to see if I got power going to where it needs to go. And I'll catch back with you later. Take two. So what we're going to do is, I think that we just had a really bad connection on the battery, a lot of corrosion. So we cleaned up the battery and changed a little bit of hardware because there was some rust on the hardware. And let's give it another shot. Okay, so Ben, connect that rear end or the power. All right, I heard something. Now, just so you know, I have the 50 amp fuse here. This 50 amp fuse is basically power for the DME. Okay. What's going on here?
All right, that's tight.
You can't really see it. The light looks like it's on. Oh yeah, that light's on. Yeah. Good job. Okay, so you can hear the fuel pump going in the back. The light's on. Everything seems to be communicating, which is good. I haven't done voltage measurements, but I don't know. I'm gonna still take them just to make sure that everything's good. But I know that I'm getting power to the fuel pump. I know that I'm getting power to the CAS unit. I know that the EKPS relay is getting power. It's almost a matter of just kind of like, let's start, So let's take these connectors. Let's plug them into the unit. This is the X6001. Let's plug that in and get it all situated, and move on from there. Let's see what we can do. All right, so I got this connector here. I've got the X6001 finally plugged into it, and now it's just a matter of clocking these connectors correctly to get it into the DME, and then you kind of push, you get it in, and then you push. Oh, that's not right. Gotta get it in. There we go. And then you push, and it kind of drives it in as you push. So this guy is in. And then the second one is right here, and that guy should go like that. That's it. Okay, so the DME is now fully connected. Everything is connected now. Give this thing a shot, see if we can get it started.
And the clutch is jumpered.
And oh yes, the clutch is jumpered. There's 2 pins on the CAS unit for fooling the CAS system into thinking that the clutch is pushed in. And we've jumpered those. So that's already jumpered. Put the fuse in and let's start it.
This guy? Yeah.
Yep. So the pump should turn on by default. Do it.
All right, here we go. Only pump.
Priming the pump.
No, it should turn up. We got nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, back for more. We actually extracted the actual clutch with the 4-pin clutch reed switch because I don't think that what I did before was right by just shorting those 2 wires. There's another wire that goes to the DME and there's another wire that goes to ground. Again, all this will be documented in my swap write-up, my integrators guide, but I think that we actually need this piece here in order to get it started. Now, obviously, after we get it started and we understand how this reed switch works, whether it's supplying power somewhere or ground somewhere or just shorting 2 wires, we can just easily replicate that later. But I don't want to fool around with it. I just want to get the right clutch in, the right master cylinder and get it working. So now, Ben, what you're going to do is you're going to push the clutch in and simulate depressing the clutch, and then it should start. Here we go.
All right, fingers crossed.
Nothing, huh? Okay, back to the drawing board. Called the bus PA wire because this N54 E92 had what's called comfort access, which means that you can just touch the door handle and it opened the door and you can get in. You don't have to put the key in the ignition. You just have to like press the button. So that's what that car had, and I was not wiring that wire. It's a white wire and it goes directly from the CAS unit to the DME, and there's a couple of other splices along the way that go to other modules. Like the comfort access system, but it's a splice. So I'm hoping that this actually made the difference. So Ben, give it another shot. Let's see what we can do. Okay. Everything primed.
It would fire. I mean.
Oh, it would have fired?
Yeah,
okay.
It would turn over.
Okay. Nope. Okay. More later. All right, so after fumbling around and fucking around with this whole system and not getting it to start, I think that the reason it's not starting is primarily because I'm missing some key components. A lot of you guys have told me that I'm missing them, and I kind of ignored it, hoping that I can do it just on the CAS unit alone. I've been told by other people that I can do it on the CAS unit alone, but I don't think that that's the case. I think that I need this. This is called the 4010 unit, and it's got the body control module integrated into it. You basically pull this guy off. Looks like it's on by clips. You can pull this guy off. This integrates with the body, and that's your K can and part of your PT can. It's got your fuses in there, and it's got a lot of wiring on the back side that I cut off, right at the stems, but we don't need all this wiring, okay? Don't be intimidated by all this. We need some of it. So I'm really going to try to get this working here, at least get it started, and then when and if I do, I can report back on the results and what exactly you need from a donor car in order to get this started. So bear with me as I continue to make more progress on the wiring. This is pretty laborious, which is why I haven't posted a video in quite some time. But that's why, is because this takes a lot of time to go through. It really does. So I'm going to thin this out. I'm going to try to identify some components that you need. And I'm going to kind of learn as I go here when it comes to this. But this really does apply to a lot of new models when you do an engine swaps. So stand by. All right, so here's the 4010 unit, okay? Pulled it right out. I've also got the car body module here too, which I need in order to talk to everything. I really want to strip this down to its constituents so that I know exactly what I need to communicate to. So here is the cut through, or where I snip the wires that go through the firewall. That includes the wiring from the the 6011. Let me show that to you real quick. 6011 pass-through wires. The other pass-through wires for that purple connector, which I don't know the ref des for. Here's the purple wire with the ref des, and here are the wires that pass through. And of course, all of the signals that the X6001 DME connector passes through the firewall, including the throttle pedal, clutch signal, and all those things. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking all those wires that pass through, and if I haven't already repurposed them for the car, I'm going to find out which ones I need to connect and where they need to go. And also supply power to this guy through this guy. So I think that that's going to end up solving my problem for start. Obviously, the EKPS relay is still going to be integrated and everything like that, but I really want to break it down into what is necessary to get the car to start. There might be some fault codes, and that's okay. I'm going to end up getting the DME reflashed by Castle anyway, but I want to make sure that I can get this thing to start as is for you guys to know, hey, if I ever wanted to swap an engine, this is what I need, and that's important. So firewall pass-throughs, I've got it distilled down to these. There's a lot of red wire here, and that's because a lot of them are powers. So I need to, the power is going to essentially come from here. It's going to be distributed into here, and it's going to be sent out to the engine. All right, so this needs to be connected to those other connectors I was telling you about on the engine side over there. As far as what I found as I traced back all these wires, that there were actually a couple that went into, this is actually all going to be distilled down, but there's actually this green wire with a red stripe. That's your wake-up wire. That comes from here, wakes this guy up through this connector. There's also the CAN. This is for the onboard diagnostics, so the OBD2 port. And there's also a power wire that ends up going to it. So this guy needs to get power as well. This other connector here, and I labeled them. Let me take a picture of that. This connector here is the one that goes up and sneaks up over the transmission tunnel and goes into the CAS module. So this is actually where the CAS is going to be primarily talking to this body module. Finally, this guy on the back side is really just like, I'm actually not going to be using this, at least I don't think I'm going to be using it. It's just a connector that talks to, supplies power to things like, power door locks and footwell module and stuff like that. And I don't think that there's any need for this. This other connector back here does not have a label, and that actually connects directly into the unit. So it's really mainly for power distribution. So it's all part of this assembly already. So when you hook up power to it, this thing will actually already be getting power from that connector. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to thin this guy out. I actually zip tied it, and I'm going to clean up the wiring, remove all this. And then I'm going to start hooking everything up and seeing how well everything plays at that point. Okay, so this is like my last ditch effort. This fucking rat's nest of wires I got here. I forgot two things with this junction box. I forgot to, number one, I extracted the relays from them for my own purposes, but I realized that I had taken them out and didn't put them back in. So I put them back in. And then second was, there are ground wires for this junction box that need to be grounded, and I didn't ground them. So two very basic things I didn't do. However, I got a ground wire, and now I'm going to ground these, and listen carefully. Everything seems to be clicking. Let's start this thing. Let's just start it. Please, please.
Sorry.
Anyway, so not only did I take relays out of this thing back in the day, but I also took fuses out. So I put the fuses back where I think they belong at the right rating. I got the relays in. Let's hook up the ground. You hear things click. All right, try again. All right, we're on day 3 of getting this thing wired up, and I'm starting to get a little defeated. I still haven't been able to get this wired. I've made small incremental steps every time, but I could not get it to start. So there's something that I'm missing, something I'm forgetting. I don't know what it is yet, but I think I've tried everything. So I'm gonna do one more thing, and that is to start over. All right, after starting over with the wiring this morning, I think I got everything back to the way it was. I've gotten the engine actuators to move like the throttle, and that proves that I'm getting power to the DME through the two X6011 connectors. So I think that what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to bypass the CAS start wire, which is number 23. It's the black wire that goes right to the starter solenoid. I'm just going to apply power directly to it. If the DME is getting power and CAS allows it to, and CAS unlocks it, it should start and run. That's kind of what I'm going for here. So let's see if this works. Hopefully it'll work. All right, so listen carefully for the throttle. Yeah. All right, listen carefully for the throttle. Everything clicked? Let's start her up. I hear a lot going on, but it's still not starting. So I gotta try again. Okay. So I took a look at the wiring again, and I ended up jumpering some power to get power to the car access system through two pins, not just the one. There's a red wire, and then there's also a green wire that needs to get wired into it, and I found out that one of the wires was not getting the power that it needed. So if I were to power it up, and you can focus on the engine here, you'll see or hear quietly that everything just powers up now that I have that wire in there. Right? You can hear it. So let's try starting it and see what happens. Nothing. All right, so what if I tried to manually turn the starter when I try to start the button start? Maybe I don't need CAS to get it started, but once it works, it'll run. So let me try to just jumper it here and press the button. Nothing. Take power off. That right there, if you can hear it, is the coolant pump running. And if I pull power, it'll turn off. Let's try, I'll pull this in.
You're not going to get electrocuted, right?
No, it's 12 volts. There's a wire on here. It's a green wire with a white stripe on the CAS system. And it goes to this thing called ZE or something. Okay, it's pin 7. I see it on the DME here on the X6001 connector, pin 7. It shows that it goes to the 6011 connector, which is the engine connector, which is the interface from the engine to the rest of the car. And I see that same color wire with the same thickness. It's a big clue that it may actually work together. I don't know what ZRS means. I tried to look it up. The internet doesn't have shit. So I'm going to connect them together, and I'm going to try starting it with the start button again, just like normal, and see if that does anything. So let me So when the engine's firing, when the engine was at least turning over, and I was turning it over a lot and trying different permutations, I did smell gas, and when I stopped turning the engine, everything quieted down and I could hear the fluid kind of settling, which leads me to believe that the injectors are actually opening, but there's no ignition. I went in the back and I smelled the exhaust, and it smelled pretty gassy back there. So I'm thinking that the injectors are opening, but nothing is firing. So everything in the DME is commanding the engine except the EWS signal from the CAS. And this green wire with a white stripe, the ZRS, is the last wire that I see that actually is the intermediary communication device between those two components. So let's see if it starts now. Apply power. Start. No. Let me try jumpering it. Yeah! It starts! Woo-hoo-hoo! Look at that rat's nest of wires. Look at that rat's nest of wires. That works. It works.
What do you think, Daddy?
Dozens of hours, 3 late nights in order to get this car wired up and started. It takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and a lot of effort in order to get to this point. That's why my write-up will end up having all this information in it for you, so that you don't have to do all that guesswork. All the pinouts, wires, colors, connectors will all be there for you to read in my integration guide coming out in July. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Stay tuned in the next episode where it gets even more exciting. We'll start to break down that electronic system to understand exactly what is the minimum that it takes in order to get this car started. I think I have a lot of superfluous stuff in there, a lot of wires that I don't need. I don't think that I need that big fuse box module. I think I can simulate powers and relays going into it manually. But I do think that I need the CAS. So I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to work my way out from there and just keep on trying to start every time. And if it doesn't start, then work my way backwards. So that's the plan for next episode, guys. Stay tuned. There's a lot more to learn, and I'm looking forward to teaching you guys and showing you how I do it. Thanks a lot for watching. And hey, we're making some good progress here. I'm really excited. This is good stuff. I was really happy today when we got this started. So thanks a lot. I couldn't do it without your support. Couldn't do it without the support of Castle. Castle Performance is the company that I'm going to end up going with to end up flashing this DME for a slick setup. They're going to end up flashing the whole thing for me. They're going to put a tune on it, and this thing's going to be mean. So I'm really excited to work with them over the next week or two, whatever, to try getting this thing as a real standalone setup. Yeah, let's move forward on this, huh? Stay tuned, guys. Thanks for watching.